Hello, my friends. Mrs. Cow here. I'm one of the cows that lives on the Zuckerman's farm, friends with Wilbur. I've heard that you guys have been reading Charlotte's Web with Miss Griffiths. I hope you're liking this story. It's one of my favorites. Fern reads it to us all the time out on the farm. So Miss Griffiths told me to pick up with chapter 8, and it is titled, A Talk at Home. Moo! Here we go. On Sunday morning, Mrs. and Mr. Arable and Fern were sitting at breakfast in the kitchen. Avery had finished and was upstairs looking for his slingshot. Did you know that Uncle Homer's goslings had hatched? Asked Fern. How many? Said Mr. Arable. 7, replied Fern. There were 8 eggs, but 1 egg didn't hatch, and the goose told Templeton she didn't want it anymore, so he took it away. The goose did what? Asked Mrs. Arable, gazing at her daughter with a strange, worried look. Templeton told Templeton she didn't. Gosh, I can't read today. Told Templeton she didn't want the egg anymore, repeated Fern. Who's Templeton? Asked Mrs. Arable. He's the rat, replied Fern. None of us like him much. Who's us? Asked Mr. Arable. Oh, everybody in the barn cellar. Wilbur and the sheep and the lambs and the goose and the gander and the goslings and Charlotte and me. Charlotte? Said Miss Arable. Who's Charlotte? She's Wilbur's best friend. She's terribly clever. What does she look like? Asked Miss Arable. Well, said Fern thoughtfully, she has 8 legs. All spiders do, I guess. Charlotte is a spider? Asked Fern's mother. Fern nodded. A very big gray one. She has a web across the top of Wilbur's doorway. She catches flies and sucks their blood. Wilbur just adores her. Does he really? Said Mrs. Arable rather vaguely. She was staring at Fern with a worried expression on her face. Oh, yes, Wilbur adores Charlotte, said Fern. Do you know what Charlotte said when the goslings hatched? Well, when as the first gosling stuck its head out from under the goose, I was sitting on my stool in the corner, and Charlotte was on her web. She made a speech. She said, I am sure that every one of us here in the barn cellar will be gratified to learn that after 4 weeks of unremitted effort and patience on the part of the goose, she now has something to show for it. Don't you think that was a pleasant thing for her to say? Yes, I do, said Mrs. Arable. And now, Fern, it's time to get ready for Sunday school. And tell Avery to get ready. And this afternoon you can tell me more about what goes on in Uncle Homer's barn. Aren't you spending quite a lot of time there? You go there almost every afternoon, don't you? I like it there, said Fern. She wiped her mouth and ran upstairs. After she had left the room, Mrs. Arable spoke in a low voice to her husband. I worry about Fern, she said. Did you hear the way she rambled on about the animals, pretending that they talked? What does she mean, pretending? Who said animals can't talk? Mr. Arable chuckled. Maybe they do talk, he said. I've sometimes wondered. At any rate, don't worry about Fern. She's got a lively imagination. Kids think they hear all sorts of things. Just the same, I do worry about her, replied Mrs. Arable. I think I shall ask Dr. Dorian about her the next time I see him. He loves Fern almost as much as we do, and I want him to know how odd she has been acting about that pig and everything. I don't think it's normal. You know perfectly well animals don't talk. Mr. Arable grinned. Maybe our ears aren't as sharp as Fern's, he said. I like that Mr. Arable. He knows what he's talking about. Mrs. Arable doesn't know what she's talking about. Look, living proof. Animals talk right here. Moo!